The anime begins as a mysterious being sends a white orb down on Earth. The orb can transform into anything and thus takes the shape of a rock, as that was the first thing it interacted with on the surface. Many years later, an injured dog falls on top of the rock and dies. The orb decides to take the shape of the dog and starts traveling. As he travels further and further, the dog reaches a settlement. It's empty and completely abandoned, except for one extra cheerful boy who lives there. The boy calls out to the dog and is really happy to see him. He calls him Joanne and tells him that he's really happy that he is back. The boy then starts doing his usual chores. Whenever he is free, he dreams about the paradise on the other side of the mountain. The other villagers went there and left him to take care of the sick and the elderly. If they wouldn't be able to cross the mountain in the first place, the boy then decides to pack his stuff and leave for paradise. The journey seems to be going well until the boy injures his leg, and in those conditions isn't able to contain the bleeding. But the boy keeps going. He gets a bit of hope every time he sees a landmark by one of the villagers, but the boy loses his last beacon of hope when he sees broken carts and tombstones along the way. Dejected and hopeless, he decides to come back. However, his injured leg keeps getting worse and worse. Without proper treatment, the boy finally dies. The dog then takes the shape of the boy and decides to live his life just like the boy had wanted to. The orb, now in the shape of the human from before, travels south to wander in the so-called paradise that the boy had mentioned. Since he doesn't know how to live or survive as a human being, he dies over and over again. Sometimes he dies to giant bears, definitely something a normal human would be able to avoid dying to. Sometimes he dies due to starvation or injury. But since it's an alien life form, it keeps regenerating itself over and over again. Meanwhile, a girl that goes by the name of March is about to be sacrificed by a nearby village to a god named Onaguma. Guess this March won't even last as long as February. However, the little girl has some friends, one of whom helps her escape. As she's being carried up the mountain to the sacrificial altar, the friend's name is Perona. And despite her efforts in freeing her, March is still pursued by many villagers. However, they get scared and run off as March comes across the orb while it's regenerating. After a while, March starts feeding the boys some fruits. The boy devours them like a feral beast, which is somehow cute to the little girl. Children really do have weird tastes. As the two rest in a quiet place, March starts getting nightmares about his little sister and friend getting sacrificed in place of her. She gets scared and wakes up. She decides to go back to the main road so that she can be captured again by the villagers, but the boy follows her because he somehow feels that he's around her. March then jokes about being his mother, as Perona is captured for letting March flee. A giant bear attacks the villagers guarding her. Perona uses this chance to cut off her ropes with a knife, shape and hiding, and frees herself. But the bear really isn't picky about what he eats, so he starts attacking Perona too. In an attempt to escape from the bear, Perona falls down a cliff. March tries to teach the boy how to say thank you, but it really doesn't seem to work. Slay leads his search party, along with the other villagers who are carrying March up the mountain. They find the pair as they are dilly-dallying in the mountains. Asa steals March some drugged jelly and carries her over to the sacrificial altar. And so, March is tied to the sacrificial altar. The giant bear soon reappears, as this guy really isn't getting anything to eat today. Asa and the others assume that the bear is Onaguma and back off so that the bear can feast on the little girl, and their sacrifice is completed. But Perona comes to the rescue. Perona tries to fend off the bear but passes out after getting hit by an attack from the bear. Later on, the orb comes to save March and transforms into a wolf. The wolf now bites off the bear's neck, and the bear bleeds to death. Asa declares that if they all follow her to the nation of Yanam, they all can be spared. They agree, and the wolf finally utters the words thank you from its mouth. Thank you for the food. Perona, March, and the wolf, now named Fushi, accept Asa's offer and continue their long and arduous journey towards the land of Yanam. At first, it all seems to be going really well as Asa appears to be kind and lets them have fun on the way. Everyone gets to eat different kinds of foods and is able to fully take in the relaxing atmosphere of the trip. The atmosphere seems too relaxing for people who were just trying to kill each other earlier. However, the joy is short-lived as Heiasa drugs everyone secretly, and they all fall asleep. Fushi then wakes up in a prison, getting tortured over and over again by prisoners just to confirm if he is immortal or not. But she gets hurt so bad that he actually learns a new phrase. He learns how to say it hurts. Fushi transforms into a wolf and runs away, but he is hit by a poisonous arrow and starts limping from the pain. Fushi somehow reaches the cell March is being held up at, and there she tends to his wounds. Perona figures out a plan to get out of this sticky situation. She tells March that if they bring Onaguma's dead body back to the village, they would be able to convince them that they don't need any more sacrifices for Onaguma. Following this plan, Fushi and March start digging their way to the outside but are caught in the act. Heiasa then forces March to take care of the bear so that it can live again, but the injuries of the bear are just too grave. Perona is also spotted by a guard as she falls down into a storage room, and thus she has to rush her plan and escape now instead of later, as was originally planned. Perona, Fushi, and March try to escape the prison as they are chased by the villagers from Yanam. During a chase, an arrow tries to hit Perona, but March comes in front of the attack and takes the arrow in place of Perona. March dies, and so we can finally move forward with the plot. And this makes Fushi angry. Fushi transforms into the giant bear from earlier and wipes out all the enemies. They all managed to escape, and Perona now has to give the news of March's death to her parents. Looks like death came marching down on her. Since Yoname's soldiers still want to hunt down Fushi, Perona convinces the boy to abandon the village and go. She tells him to live his life away from all this drama, and Fushi reluctantly agrees. As Fushi is escaping, one of the villagers tries to shoot him down with an arrow, but Perona comes to the rescue as she shoots the hands of the shooter before they could take Fushi down. Fushi escapes into the forest and is then shown to take on the form of March. Fushi continues his journey through the forest. On his journey, he encounters Elder Piran once again. The last time both of them were together was when they were attempting to flee the prison. Prison buddies stick together. The elder welcomes Fushi with open arms and teaches him how to speak. When he shows some intent on learning about writing, after a while, Fushi learns to speak with the elder more or less, as he is now able to form full sentences. However, Fushi's sentences still come out a bit slower than normal. He wasn't the brightest but he sure is smarter than a lot of humans. Fushi, now being able to speak, narrates his life story to the elder. He tells her about how he came to Earth, how he met the boy, and how he came to know March. Later, Fushi and Piran arrive at Takuna, a country that is at war with Yoname. They're here in search of Piran's lover. As they're peacefully camping out at night, they're attacked by a mysterious creature that takes all of Fushi's memories away, converting him back to his orb form. Fushi's creator, the Beholder, appears, and with his guidance, Fushi is able to defeat the creature. He then tells Fushi that they aim to protect humanity and that there are creatures who are going to try to stop him from completing this mission. At the end of the episode, they finally arrive at the house of Piran's lover. Our travelers meet a small boy named Hugo. Gugu wears a mask on his face and is quite a lively child, but like every other lively child, he has a dark past. Guru used to live with his older brother, but his older brother abandoned him. Gugu then finds himself in a very tragic and very serious railroad accident that completely destroyed the structure of his face. Gugu is saved by Piran's lover, who goes by the name of Boozman. Now forced to wear a mask to hide the structure of his face, Gugu hops from shop to find work to live. It is at this time that Piran and Fushi reach the restaurant owned by Boozman, where they meet Gugu. Fushi and Gugu interact with each other several times, establishing a decent relationship. Meanwhile, Fushi, who was crushed being crop, works at the restaurant and becomes attracted to Fushi and his antics. This makes Gugu quite jealous, and he decides to work hard to impress his crush. Go for it, boy. We're all rooting for you. Who leaves the restaurant after he has a heated argument with Boozman. He goes out in the city searching for work, but he constantly gets abused and discriminated against because of his deformed face. He gets frustrated to the point that he quits every time he is bullied. On the other hand, Fushi decides to help out around the restaurant by cooking and cleaning, but he totally sucks at it. So, upon multiple failures, Piran tells Fushi that he needs Gugu to teach him all those new skills. She continues that once he learns cooking, he would become a proper adult. Gugu really struggles to obtain easy money with the ring Ring gave him, but in the end, gives it up for his missing brother. The next night, a group of shady men tried to kidnap Boo's man because they want to use him in a show as he looks like an interesting character. But they are interrupted as Fushi comes and scares them all off. Fushi and Gugu make up. His Fushi asks for Boo's man's help in teaching him chores and cooking, and thus they both become friends. As Fushi saves Gugu, and the two become friends. Fushi finally manages to make some decent food, and he feeds it to Gugu. Fushi and Gugu then discuss the concepts of life and death, and Fushi tells him that he can take the form of anyone who dies in front of him. Fushi then tells Gugu that if he dies, he will take Gugu's form as well, just as he did with March in the nameless villager from the north. Rin finds the two friends, and as Gugu realizes that he has actually lost his mask, Fushi goes out to find it. Rin and Gugu argue about Gugu not showing his face, but in the end, they both make up. The two decide to come back to the restaurant, but since Rin's father doesn't like when the plot is going smoothly, he sends kidnappers to capture Rin. But she manages to escape in the end. Fushi is attacked by the unknown Sola again as he's out trying to find Gugu's mask. The unknown silhouettes are called knockers. Fushi tries to fight the knockers off, but he is defeated by them. As they are about to deal the finishing blow, Gugu comes to the rescue and uses fire to defeat the knockers. He was taught how to use fire by Boo's man. Afterwards, Fushi returns to the restaurant along with Gugu and teaches Fushi everything he wants to know, whether it be about cooking, cleaning, or anything else. 4 years pass, and Fushi has now finally settled in with his new family. Fushi is glad that he's growing up like a normal human being. He's also happy that he has naturally grown facial hair. However, since nothing goes too well for too long in this show, the Beholder shows up again and tells Fushi to abandon the area and go somewhere else to train his powers to prepare for the knockers. But Fushi denies it and says that he needs Gugu. Rin's 16th birthday arrives, but she isn't really happy about it since she has been promised to a man for marriage who's 4 years older than her. Rin does not want to marry that man, and as she's trying to figure out how to get out of that sticky situation, a drunken Gugu comes and confesses his feelings for her. The next day, however, Gugu doesn't remember what he did, and just as he's coming out of the shock of what he has done, he is visited by his brother, who must have come to congratulate him on confessing. His brother apologizes to him for abandoning him, but Gugu doesn't accept it because, yes, you don't get an apology after that long. His brother returns Rin's ring to him. Fushi tells Gugu to man up and confess his feelings, but this time, to do it properly. However, Gugu doesn't want to go as he feels inferior to her in terms of wealth and status. Gugu shows her the ring, and she tells him that she remembers how she gave it to him. The knockers then attack the two lovebirds, and Fushi is informed by the Beholder. As the knockers barge into the cute love story as villains, Fushi tries to be the hero and protect them by turning into his giant bear form. However, his strength is not enough, as he is able to save the citizens from harm but is not able to completely defeat the knockers. Fushi is heavily wounded and returns to the form of the unnamed villager from the north. Gugu and Rin go to the area to investigate, but the building collapses, and Gugu uses his extraordinary strength to protect Rin. Fushi then channels the last of his strength and protects the pair. But he realizes later that he only managed to save Rin and that Gugu is dead. Fushi then takes on the form of Gugu and defeats the knockers, which then escape to the west. As she recovers from the stress and trauma, Rin tries to find Gugu but is unable to do so as he's dead. Fushi then takes on Gugu's form and comes in front of her, but as she starts getting relieved about everything, Fushi tells her that Gugu will not return, making her realize that Gugu is, in fact, dead. Fushi embarks on a journey alone to avoid any more harm to the people that he cares about. As Rin reminisces about Gugu and her love for him, she tells her father that the man she loves is dead. Since Gugu's death wasn't enough of a loss for Fushi, he has apparently forgotten about March's existence. He discusses it all with the Beholder, that he captures the souls of everyone after they're dead and not their bodies. They also discuss that what Fushi is missing are March's memories and the time she'd spent with him. Fushi decides to go and find those memories so that he can turn into her again and have her soul close to him. As Fushi is about to leave alone, Piran insists on coming with him. She tells him that Fushi doesn't know how to read a map or how to take care of himself and that he needs someone experienced in traveling to go with him. Fushi agrees after a lot of back and forth, a decision I'm sure he will be regretting in the future. The duo decides to board a ship as Piran seems to think it's a normal ship. They end up boarding a ship that is meant for prisoners. Separated from each other, they're both taken to an island that can't be more different from its name. The island is a prison island, and its name is Janata, also known as Freedom Island. Fushi decides that he must do everything to save his dear friend Piran, as he has already lost enough. The island hosts a fighting competition for the prisoners, and the winner gets to roam free. Fushi sees this as an opportunity and thinks that this way he can save Piran. But he doesn't realize that it's a murder competition. Fushi doesn't really do that well in the first round and gets run over by all the prisoners trying to kill each other. He doesn't like killing and wants to end the fight as soon as possible with as minimal fighting as possible. Everyone else kills each other, and in the end, Fushi is left alone with one person who gets scared of his regeneration skills, and that results in an easy win for our boy. Fushi then searches for Piran but finds out that she is being held up in a special building for special prisoners. In the second round, he is reluctant about killing and gets angry and sad of the fact that he no longer has March or the giant bear, since they were both taken by knockers. But Fushi somehow transforms into Piran and wins. He becomes the winner of the realm, but he is really shocked because if he can become Piran, then she must be dead. Fushi meets a girl named Tonari who tells him that there are a lot of good people who have become criminals because of their circumstances, specifically referring to her father. Fushi once again tries his hand at saving Piran, but the beholder tells him to honor Piran's legacy and live on. In the next round, Fushi dominates the opponent, but the opponent is a stubborn little fellow and doesn't want to give up, must have been a shaman fan. Since the people weren't accustomed to seeing a fight with no bloodshed, they were disappointed by the lack of deaths and started attacking the two fighters after the battle, which resulted in Fushi's victory. He clashes with Tonari over a conflict of morals, as he doesn't approve of the idea of killing anyone. As everyone is busy doing what they usually do, the knockers attack once again. The villagers team up with Fushi temporarily, and they all work together to defeat the knockers. As they are defeated, Fushi finally regains March's spirit and is glad to finally have her friends back with him. He then reconciles with Tonari, putting everything that happened behind them. Fushi becomes friends with Tonari and the other kids as they hang out with her as well. Tonari is still distant from Fushi as she hasn't opened up to him about the fact that she saw her father die a horrible death in the same arena where he fights. Fushi is finally able to climb up the building to Piran as March and tells her that he would definitely save her in the final match. Fushi comes across an old foe, the one woman who had caused him so much pain and suffering back when she killed March and tried to hunt him down too. She also reveals that she was the one who killed Piran. All of this enrages Fushi, and he rushes in to attack her, but Hayase is much more experienced and defeats him easily by injecting him with a drug. Fushi loses, and as the champion, Hayase becomes the leader of Janata Island. Thus, she has every right to do whatever she wants with Fushi. In a victorious and borderline mad state, Hayase starts spouting false tales about how she was the one who had found Fushi 4 years ago and how she'd turned the feral beast into what he is today. The villagers start respecting Hayase, and Fushi, clearly not the smartest bunch around. Hayase continues with her lies, that she was, in fact, the one who taught Fushi a human tongue and taught him what sense he has of autonomy and sentience. She then entrusts the island to Tonari as she takes Fushi into a secret bedroom for a rumpy-pumpy. Tonari and her friends try to save Fushi, but they are all caught by the guards who now follow their new leader Hayase. Fushi, however, surprises Hayase by putting a knife to her throat and telling her that the boy she was assaulting just now was merely an empty husk. He tells her that he would surrender himself to her in return for the safety of Tonari and all her friends. She agrees to those terms and prepares a ship for Tonari, her friends, and other generated children to escape. But all never goes well as Hayase drugs them all, along with Fushi, and sends them off. Tonari comes back by a robo to save Fushi, who is being held at a well for Hayase to continue working away on him. As Tonari comes back to the island, she becomes successful in freeing Fushi. The two attempt to sneak their way out of harm's way from Hayase, since she somehow drugs everyone if she's aware of them. Knockers come back and start attacking the villagers. Tonari becomes aware of them thanks to the Beholder, but the Knockers, this time, are equipped with a new ability. They have the ability to possess the dead. As Fushi alone is not the one who is evolving, since Janata Island specializes in dead people, the Knockers have a feast with the dead fighters from the arena. The possessed dead people start killing the others and lure Fushi out to them. Fushi tries to stop them in their tracks, but there are simply too many enemies to fight. Tonari and all their friends try to face the army of the dead, but most of them are overpowered and killed in the process. The army of the dead, now having all of Fushi's friends in the ranks, poses a big challenge for the boy. As he now has to cut down all his friends along with many other people, due to this, Fushi starts cowering in fear. But as usual, Hayase proves she's even worse than the Knockers as she captures Tonari and says that Fushi needs to surrender to her, or Tonari is gonna face the brunt of Hayase's wrath. Since Tonari is unusually resistant to certain toxins, she's still able to move after being drugged and tries to take Hayase away with her to the land of the dead by jumping into a pit of fire created by the Knockers. She, however, saves them both, something he has been successful in for the first time in the show. He captures Hayase and drugs her with the same morning glory poison she uses on others. Fushi then defeats the dead and takes control of the situation. Later, he says goodbye to Tonari as he takes a chain with him on a boat. Tonari now rules the place. Hayase wakes up later and proclaims that she loves him, but Fushi gets angry and leaves her stranded on a boat while he boards another one and makes his way to civilization. Once again, Fushi is quite hesitant about returning to civilization as it will only bring pain and suffering upon the people. But eventually, he decides to do it, probably had enough of force in fighting the dead. Fushi then once again gets hesitant about joining his lifelong friend Piran as the Beholder tells him that she is nearing her death from old age. Since Fushi hasn't experienced anything like that before, he does not understand what he is talking about. Still, he decides to spend his time with his dear friend. As time passes, Piran starts having dementia. Fushi doesn't understand what's going on with her, but he still keeps taking care of her. Meanwhile, Hayase is saved by a kind man. However, little did he know that he had saved the craziest chick on the continent. Hayase fuses with a knocker and kills the man. On Fushi's side, Piran asked the Beholder to let her be reborn as someone who can help Fushi on his everlasting journey. The Beholder is then seen wholly in orb similar to Fushi's original form as Piran dies peacefully. Seeing how Piran has died, Fushi gets sad over the loss of another one of his companions. In the end, many decades later, Fushi is seen as a middle-aged man laughing